Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dungeon Dive. Daniel here. I hope you're doing well, and if you're not, I hope you are soon. All right, so continuing with our coverage of some science fiction themed games for the month of May, today we're going to look at Deadbelt, a solo RPG for space cowboys. Deadbelt is a game of space salvaging, and you are going out, you're exploring ships as a salvager, and you are trying to get some cargo back to your ship to pay off your debt. It is also a game of debt, paying off debt, because it is very difficult in this game to get ahead, just like it would be in some kind of dystopian uh, post kind of crazy capitalist space world where everything you do costs money. The bank is after you, aliens are after you, other salvagers are after you, and it just, yeah, you have an uphill battle to make ends meet in this game. If you like video games like Void Bastards, or you like anime like Cowboy Bebop, this might be a game that you want to take a look at. And also towards the end of this video, as we continue to look at vintage science fiction things, we are going to take a look at some art from the Penguin Library science fiction postcards. So Deadbelt. Yeah, Deadbelt is it really is a tabletop game that reminds me a lot of Void Bastards and reminds me a lot of Cowboy Bebop. You are playing as a belter, and that is a character, and you are going to have your character sheet. You have some major stats. The stats are like strength, dexterity, intelligence, that kind of thing. The stats really are a currency that you are going to be spending during the game in order to make your survival, in order to increase your odds of survival. So you have gas. Gas you use for when you are exploring ships. You're going to need oxygen. And as your oxygen runs out, then you need to get back to your airlock with whatever you have and get off the ship that you are salvaging. You have grit. Grit is a way that you can use grit to help manage threat. You can use gear to help your die rolls better. Same as grit. Grit and gear can be used to improve your die rolls for when you're rolling against the oracles and against the various events. Glow you can use as kind of like a light source in order to know what you are coming across as you explore the salvaged ships. And load is how much you can carry, and you want to search for certain items, and then you want to carry them back to your cargo bay. And depending on the ship that you have a certain number of spaces in your cargo bay that you want to load up, and then leave that ship, take that back, trade your cargo for credits. And as you get more and more credits, you can pay off your debt. You can buy, you can invest in your company, in your ship, in order to lower your upkeep value, because as you increase your ship, as you buy upgrades to your ship and your belter, you will also have to pay more and more money after each salvage expedition in order to upkeep your outfit. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of, all of these things are kind of they're kind of intertwined in a way that I don't see in a lot of these indie style RPGs. So as far as like on the difficulty spectrum, I think this one is a little higher. It's going to take a little more to get into, and it is very difficult. You will probably lose a lot of belters on your first few times out. There's a lot of luck involved, but that just kind of simulates the danger of this job. It's like, it's like a space welding or something. It would be super dangerous, like underwater welding. So this is like, think of it like that, as this is a super dangerous job, and you are kind of on your last legs. You need to make your ends meet, and you're out there in space just trying to get by. The rulebook itself is pretty nice. I would really like to have this in a physical copy, the size of a small paperback, just because I would like to have it open on the table. And you'll see why this game does take up a little bit of space, because one thing you need for this game is a deck of playing cards, because these playing cards are going to be laid out in a certain pattern, and those are going to represent the ships that you're going to be exploring. And each card is a module that you will flip over to determine what you find on the ship. And then you will always use the red joker as your airlock entry where you are entering the ship. And you will always use the black joker to represent the payday, like the big thing that you are looking for on that ship. And you won't always find your payday, because there is a chance when you first dock your ship, there's a small chance that you might dock on top of the payday and thus destroying it. The payday might get cut off because the ships are fragile in space and they break apart. And this might be lost. It might be lost because it's behind a barrier that you can't you can't overcome. So there's some cool things going on, but it is very, very difficult. You have a nice little section here about explaining like the backstory and setting up the world. And then you get into the rules of play. You get a broad overview of all of the concepts. Basically, every time you come across a challenge, you're going to roll a d6. And on a 6 is a full success. A 4 and a 5 is a partial success, which you usually are going to have to spend some kind of resource to convert that to a success. You can also use grit to convert a failure to a success. And then on a 1 to 3 is going to be a failure. You can always spend a point of gear to roll 2d6 and take the best result. And so the book is going to explain your various stats, your grit, your gear, your load, your glow, your gas, and how those are used in play. And then it also explains here the currency system, the debt system, and the credit system, because you do need to pay off your debt. And each debt can be paid off with 10 credits. You can also invest in your upkeep for 5 credits. Your upkeep is a number of credits that you have to spend in between each trip out. And there is also a chance where the bank can compound your interest, which will increase your debt, or they can offer you an extension of your credit where you can pay down 1 full debt for only 9 credits. So there is this kind of like economy that is working, and the economy is represented as both like a monetary economy dealing with your debt, but also a stat economy dealing with your various stats that are spent as resources. And you have to buy more of those resources in between each mission. And it is very easy to go into a ship and come out of a whole salvage trip with only like 1 or 2 credits. Your upkeep is 1 or 2. And so you end up going on this trip and you end up coming back with worse than nothing because you've spent some of your resources to get nothing. And it's very easy to get behind the ball in this game. Here you have your belter creation. So the belter is your character, and I think there are 4 different classes you can play. Each class is going to have a different starting array of stats, and they're going to have some special features which are going to give them a little bonus on certain rolls or things that they can do, and then also a starting debt level and a starting debt move, and then a little aspiration, which is going to give you just a little backstory. So the vet here is you were never going to be able to just go home again. Maybe you were in the Consolidation War. Maybe you never fired a weapon in anger, but your time in the service changed you anyway. The civilian life didn't take when you mustered out. You had too many burrs and rough edges, and on the drift you rubbed too many people the wrong way. Now you're drifting out here with the rest of us, out on the lonesome frontier, just trying to make your way. Better than piloting a desk, right? And your aspiration is to buy the farm. One day you're going to get the peace you were promised. There's a little spot on a frontier world that you have had your eye on for a while. The sun hits that ridge right around coffee time, and the hills sing. You've got a picture of a view from where you'll build the farmhouse taped above your rack back in the ship. just have to scrape the creds together. You can be a cowboy, which the cowboy you're out there for fame and fortune. You can be a void rat, which you are just out there to get paid. And you can be a scoundrel or a slicer. So those are your various classes with their stats and their starting powers and little role play blurb. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to have your ship. And there are 3 different ships you can start off with, from small to large: the killdeer, the jackdaw, and the albatross. Each one of those is going to have a certain number of cargo that for things that they can carry back from the salvage trips. Each one of those is going to cost a certain number of debt. And then each one of those has a trade-in value for when you want to upgrade your ship. You can trade in your old ship. And then we have some rules about the bank. And when you get back from the ship, you have to make a die roll to see how the bank is going to handle the credit that they owed you. And then you also have your payday rule. So when you find that black joker, when you find your payday, you get to roll a d6 to kind of determine what it is and how easy it is to get out of the ship. If you roll a 6, then you get to pick 3 things that are true about that payday discovery. Maybe you don't need to spend grit to remove it. Maybe you don't need to check your gas level, your oxygen level on the way out. Maybe you can avoid the ship breaking up. You can avoid unwanted attention from a threat, because when you pick up your payday, or when you run out of gas, when you run out of oxygen, you're going to have to roll on this threat chart. And the threat is an external force that can come into the ship to disrupt your salvage expedition. And then you can roll to see what kind of payday you have discovered. So kind of a cool system there. I've gone through 3 ships now, and I have not found the payday. It's quite hard. Your airlock is always going to be represented by your red joker, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then you can also spacewalk. You can jump from one module to the next, going outside of a ship, or a bird as they're called. And you're going to have to press your luck to see how well your spacewalk went. So the birds. So when you go out to a ship on a salvage mission, you're going to roll a d6 to see what tier ship you have discovered. In this instance, I would have a 5, so I would find a tier 2 ship. So then I would roll a d6 again, and a 6, it's a military ship. And then here we have all of the different plans of the ships. So we have a tier 2 military ship. Let's see, tier 2 civilian, tier 1, tier 2 military class. Don't listen to what the concordant rocket jocks call it. The Ferret is an overgrown space superiority fighter, which was once the very bleeding edge of military technology. There are a good few that got sufficiently chewed up in the course of the Consolidation War, and they got dragged out here. So this tells you how many cards that you are going to need to build your ship. So this is the ship that you're going out to salvage. You're going to shuffle your deck here, and you're going to deal out 14 cards. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then you're going to take your black joker, because that's going to represent your payday. This is the big item you're looking for. And you're going to shuffle that into your ship layout there. Okay, whoops, saw some of those. All right, so you shuffled those up. And then you're going to lay out on the table the cards in this kind of configuration. So the numbers in some of these cards, those are going to represent where external threats can possibly enter when one of them comes. Then you also have these lines here. Those represent breaking points, where if the ship starts to break apart, then those cards are going to become separated from the core of the ship, and you might have to use your spacewalk ability to move from point to point. So let me see if I can set up this this ship here. So we have, I'm going to try to set it up in this direction. So we have the top up there. Okay, and then we have 2 cards underneath, like that. And then we have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, that. Okay, so there's, and then we have one card off of the top there, wings there, and like that. So that is our ship. This is the ship that we are trying to scavenge here. And then to enter the ship, we're going to take our airlock, and we're going to have to dock onto the ship somewhere. So let's say we want to come in at the top there. That's going to give us some good options. And we're going to set our little dude here. So this is my guy here that I'm using to represent my space cowboy, James Barner. And then we can start scavenging the ship. And the game does come with this handy kind of game flow chart sheet. That's going to walk you through everything, your setup. It's going to walk you through when you're scavenging, what happens in between the missions, and then the various rules for the various things you can do when you want to return to your airlock, or when you find your payday, when you have to spacewalk, and when you push. Because when you find red cards, so either hearts or diamonds, those represent things that you're going to be valuable things that you're going to be looking for. But you can push your luck with those to possibly find things that are more valuable. And as you move through the ship, you're going to be consulting these oracles here. And this is where I wish that I had a small version of the game book so I could keep it open on the table while I was playing. So I have to keep this book off the table here. You do have your threats here. So at the time when the threats come, you're going to roll a d6, and you might have to face off against some aliens or some scavengers, a rogue AI, murderous ghosts, merciless pirates, or a nanite swarm. And you're going to have to face off against the prompt here. And that's going to tell you how to play that particular threat. And then as you move from card to card, from space to space, you're going to flip it over and see what it is. So in this instance, I might want to move from my airlock to this module here. So I would do that. The first thing I would do is I would roll a d6 for my oxygen. So you start with 6 tanks of gas, 6 tanks of oxygen. And as you roll the d6, if you ever roll a 1, then you use a tank of oxygen. And then the next time, if you ever roll a 1 or 2, you use a tank of oxygen. And so on until you have used up all 6 of your tanks of oxygen, in which time, if you don't make it back in time, you will die. So a 6. Okay, so my oxygen is okay, so I can move on. I can explore this. I flip it over, and oh my God, my first time on camera. So I found my payday. That was incredibly lucky, guys. That I had like a 1 in 14 chance, 1 in 15 chance of that happening. So you find your payday. So when you encounter the payday, roll a d6. Okay. A 4. Okay. So if you roll a 6, you get to choose 3 of these things to make it easier. If you roll a 4, you get to choose 2. You can transport the whole payday in one trip, regardless of size. It's worth more than you first imagined. I really like that. I think I would use like make it in one trip, and it's worth +2 load, because that is worth more credits. And so at this point, I would move back to my airlock and try to get out and get back with that payday. But let's say that wasn't the payday. Let's say that was a 4 of clubs. Okay, so then I would come over here and I would look at the book here, and I would see what a 4 of clubs is. Clubs are all barriers. This says, unless you pull something off here, you're not getting past this area. When you encounter a barrier, roll your d6. And these are the different things that can happen. A 6 is a full success. You get past the barrier with no issues. 4 or 5, you get past it, but you can't make it back through that card. On a 1 to 3, you're not going to make it. Return to the last module you occupied and find another way. So there are ways to get blocked off of certain routes. You may so if you were over here somehow, and this card was a barrier, and maybe you couldn't get past it, you might have to spacewalk around to another location. The barriers are just a d6 roll, and then each barrier doesn't really have anything that changes the game. They are just kind of story prompts that you can read. And if you are journaling, then you can write there. But we also have here, we have spades. So spades are bad news, and these are terrible things that will happen. So if you come across a spade, maybe the lights go out, maybe it's booby trapped or emergency beacon. The ship's already been picked over, things like that. And then your salvage are your diamonds. And these are various things that you can find that are going to be worth more or less money. And you can also find supplies, which are going to add to your gas, your grit, your glow, and that kind of thing. So these are a way that you can boost those initial economic stats. And then finally, when you get back, when you found what you're looking for, or you've scavenged enough, you're running out of oxygen, you want to leave, then you can spend whatever credits you have left after paying off your upkeep and maybe not paying your debt. You can buy all kinds of different things. You can buy grit, gear, glow, load, scanner, an override key, a crybaby, a dead man cylinder, emergency scrubber, outlast deep breather, a spares bank, spares bits, an egress kit, a wreck registry, a broadcast sensor, and investments. And then the remaining pages of the manual discuss all of those different items and how they can help you in the game. So overall, I think this game is pretty fun. It's I believe it's $15 on DriveThru RPG, and it is $12 on itch.io. So if you like the idea of playing a space scavenger, if you like the idea of setting up cards and different patterns to represent ships, I like it when games use playing cards in creative ways. And I've always wanted, just a dungeon crawl to use playing cards where you're moving from space to space. I think that's a really cool idea. I wish in the barriers, I wish there was maybe a little more to it than just a story prompt and a single die roll. I wish maybe they had more kinds of challenges that you would have to go through. But overall, I think this game is pretty cool. It's very difficult though. I've finding a payday like that was that was a pretty serendipitous there. That was very, very lucky. That has never happened to me. but I've really struggled to make any kind of headway. It seems like this really uphill battle to make any progress, but I think that's kind of the purpose of the game. But yeah, overall, it's pretty cool. So let's take a look now at some of these Penguins. So Penguin was a UK based publisher, or they are a UK based publisher, and this is a collection of 100 book covers. And Penguin book covers are very famous for many of them being very, very well designed. Some of them being very kind of creepy or just weird. And they all stand out for one reason or another. And they published a ton of great science fiction novels. So we'll just kind of look through these Roadside Picnics. So fans of the Dungeon Dive have probably heard me talk about Roadside Picnic quite a bit. The basis for the Russian movie Stalkers, which also became the basis for the video game Stalker and the video game Prob, and the inspiration for Metro 2049, and the inspiration for the board game Zona. So yeah, Roadside Picnic is highly, highly influential. James Blish, Black Easter. I've never read Black Easter. I love that cover though. It's so sacrilegious. It's awesome. I think it's a science fiction novel about the discovery of Satan or something, if I remember correctly. John Wyndham's The Chrysalids. That's a great novel. Alfred Bester's The Demolished Man. Oh, that's super cool. The Reefs of Space by Frederick Pohl and Jack Williamson. Olaf Stapledon. So for those of you who listened to the last episode of the podcast, I talked about Stapledon's book Sirius, and this is a future history that he wrote called Last and First Men. Science fiction omnibus. I have no idea what was included in this, but it was edited by Brian Aldiss. Another Olaf Stapledon, The Last and First Men. Another future history, kind of a fake fictional histories. He was really into writing those. Ape Man Spaceman, edited by Leon Stover and Harry Harrison. All right. Harry Harrison, speaking of him, Bill the Galactic Hero, super fun series of books there. Paul and Kornbluth, Search the Sky. John Boyd. I don't think I've ever read John Boyd. Time and Again, Clifford D. Simak, a favorite of mine. Frank Herbert's Destination Void, and that is a great cover. The only thing I've ever read by Herbert is Dune. Ray Bradbury, The Day It Rained Forever. The Book of Imaginary Beings by Borges. Really, really great cover there. Who is that by? Cover by Peter Goodfellow. This is an awesome, just kind of abstract cover for the 3 stigmata of Palmer Eldritch, showing the 3 different signs of Palmer Eldritch there, the eyes, the mouth, and the hands. Very cool there. Fred Hoyle, The Black Cloud. I've never read Fred Hoyle, very kind of old, golden age science fiction author. Rudy Rucker, Software, fantastic. Arthur C. Clarke of Time and Stars. Paul Theroux, Ozone. I have never read Paul Theroux. Thieves World, edited by Robert Aspen. That almost looks like a Mobius cover. Who did that? Thieves World, 1984. There's no artist credit, but the lines do look like Mobius, but the color does not, so I'm not sure. H.G. Wells, Men Like Gods, Quatermass and the Pit. Another John Wyndham, which I have not read, The Trouble with Lichen. H.G. Wells, The Island of Dr. Moreau. Machines That Think, edited by Isaac Asimov. The Times of Tide by John Brunner. I have not read that particular John Brunner. I have read The Sheep Look Up and To Stand on Zanzibar. Both very, very good kind of new wave science fiction. Women of Wonder, sci-fi stories by women about women. Frederick Pohl, A Plague of Pythons. Consider Her Ways and Others by John Wyndham. Aldous Huxley, Brand New World. Kurt Vonnegut, Cat's Cradle, Another Cat's Cradle. A really bad cover for Time Out of Joint with Philip K. Dick. Almost looks like Jeff Bridges there. Pulsar 1, A Plague of Demons by Keith Laumer. That cover's great. I have this book, but with a very more science fiction-y looking cover. James Blish, The Day After Judgment. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, The Lost World. Keith Roberts, Kite World. I am not familiar at all with Keith Roberts. Fred and Jeffrey Hoyle. Invisible Man by H.G. Wells. George Orwell's 1984. Great cover there. John Wyndham, The Kraken Awakes. Robert Heinlein. Austin Grossman. Soon I Will Be Invincible. Don't know that one at all. H.G. Wells, The Science Fiction of Edgar Allan Poe, The Midwich Cuckoos. Yeah, let's go ahead and take a look at the rest. Might as well. We're about halfway through. We have John Boyd, The Girl with Jade Green Eyes. Pauline Gedge, Stargate. I'm not familiar with her. Collection by Michael Moorcock called The Traps of Time. John Boyd, The Pollinators of Eden. Paul and Kornbluth, The Space Merchants. Love that cover. Another Olaf Stapledon, The Star Maker. I wonder who did that art. Cover by Danny Flynn. Not familiar with him, but I really do like that. Planet of the Apes, Monkey Planet. The Omnibus Science Fiction by Brian Aldiss. Pulsar 2, another anthology. The Time Machines with one of those old school Penguin covers. Ray Bradbury, The Day It Rained Forever. These classic science fiction imprints from Penguin, I do not like many of those at all. They're probably more 80s versions. Science fiction covers and fantasy covers got really bad right in the mid-80s. Selected short stories by H.G. Wells. More Women of Wonder. William Gibson, Pattern Recognition. That is a brilliant cover for pattern recognition. I love that. Joseph O'Neill, Land Under England. I'm not familiar with O'Neill at all. Jack L. Chalker, Midnight at the Well of Souls. I have read that. Sheila McLeod, Xanth and the Robots. And great German Russian science fiction novel there, very underrated. Zena Henderson, The People, No Different Flesh. Not familiar with that. Another John Wyndham. Robert Sheckley, The Status Civilization, good novel there. Weird cover. Another collection, The Science Fiction Omnibus, edited by Brian Aldiss. Interworld, Fritz Lieber, The Wanderer, with a nice furry cover that I don't remember that having anything, the book having anything to do with that. Harry Harrison, Make Room, or as it is known in Hollywood, Soylent Green. Final Stage, the ultimate science fiction anthology, another Make Room by Harry Harrison. War of the Worlds, that's very cool. I love that tripod there. The Circus of Dr. Lau, fans of the Dungeon Dive know this is one of my favorite books of all time. That's a fantastic cover. I would love to get a copy of that. Seeds of Time, J.G. Ballard, Terminal Beach. I do own that. The Unpleasant Profession of Jonathan Hoag by Robert Heinlein. Cool novel there. Another John Wyndham. Jack London. The Joyous Invasions by Theodore Sturgeon. I do not have that, but I'm pretty sure that is a collection of short stories that I have in other books. Man in the High Castle, Philip K. Dick. Dark Carnival by Ray Bradbury. Awesome cover. Another Fred Hoyle. Connoisseurs Science Fiction. That guy looks like he has a butt on his face. Not quite sure what's going on there. Another John Wyndham. Wow, they sure did like John Wyndham. Ape Man, Spaceman. Another John Wyndham. Frederick Pohl. Another J.G. Ballard. Very cool. Of course, his fascination with American pop icons. Another Hoyle. And a copy of Sirius by Olaf Stapledon. Sorry, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed a look at the game Deadbelt, and I hope you enjoyed a look through the science fiction postcards of Penguin Publications. And we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.